Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation for Applied Skills for School and Society. The topic that we will be presenting on is culture. It will be presented by Ms. Dhanwati Prasad, Ms. Olivia Percival, and Ms. Shamila Ganpat. Our objectives are culture, the origin of culture, and how culture was passed on. These will be presented by Ms. Shamila. Importance of teacher developing culturally responsive practice. This will be presented by Ms. Olivia. And lastly, points supporting the motto, multicultural education is imperative to the social reconciliation and cohesion of our nation. This will be presented by Ms. Dhanwati. Without further ado, let's go straight into our presentation. First, what is culture? Culture is the way of life of any society. It is the characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, and arts. According to Clifford Geertz, he defined culture as a system of inherited conceptions expressed in symbolic forms by means of which men communicate, perpetuate, and develop their knowledge about their attitude towards life. This is an image displaying all the aspects that culture include. First, we have attitudes, beliefs, language, customs, rituals, behavior, faith or religion, food, drama, art, and music. These here are all the aspects of life that culture is integrated in. The origin of culture. Let's see where culture begins. There isn't any proven theory to prove how culture began. No one can really prove it, for two reasons. First, very little material evidence survived from thousands of years ago. And second, much of culture is non-material, and so no one can preserve for future consideration. Some cultures are continuously changing and evolving over time from one generation to another. Example, material cultures. Now let me explain what material culture is. If we can recall and think back centuries ago, buildings, the material used to construct buildings were clay, wood, log, and leaves and branches. In our present generation, that is not the same. We now use materials such as high-class wood, concrete, metals, and so on. So that's just one example of how culture change and evolve over time. And lastly, some cultures remain constant. How culture was passed on. Culture was learned, shared, transmitted, or cumulative. These five defining features of culture are important in understanding both the complexity of culture and how groups maintain their uniqueness over time.
Importance of teachers developing culturally responsive practices. It raises expectations for all pupils. Undeserved students may face implicit bias because of their race, culture, or language. As a result, these students are often overrepresented in social education. Other times, their needs may go undetected. They're also often underrepresented in gifted education. By using an assets mindset, schools are less likely to misidentify students for special education. At the same time, schools better identify and serve students who may have learning and thinking differences. It helps pupils feel valued and empowered. With culturally responsive practices, students tie their learning to their cultures, experiences, interests, and the issues that impact their lives. When students see themselves represented in the curriculum, they feel like they belong. They're more likely to develop the trust it takes to build a relationship with a teacher. It builds cultural competence. Culturally responsive practices give students a chance to learn from an inclusive curriculum. It helps both you and the students understand different perspectives, appreciate others' strengths, and build empathy. It supports special education learning. Cultural responsive practices help you get to know your students. When you plan social emotional learning lessons, you can use that knowledge to make sure your lessons value your students. By pairing special education learning with cultural responsive practices, you can also help students navigate multiple contexts, both inside and outside of school.
Points supporting the mottos multicultural education is imperative to the social reconciliation and cohesion of our nation. Helps to create understanding and acceptance of the differences between people. Culture is diverse, so a multicultural education teaches students to respect and appreciate the different culture among people, belief, religion, and custom. Promote social skills and social actions are shaped resulting in the civically engaged people. Multicultural education teaches children the skills of interacting with others who are deemed different from what they may be accustomed to. Assimilate while keeping their culture and value intact, and this makes them feel a sense of inclusion. You learn to preserve your culture and also adapt to the changing culture of society. And that has brought us to the end of our presentation on culture.